There's also, we're looking for speakers, so if you want to do a talk here, again, come speak to either Chris or I. We'll take your details and we'll give you a contact and see what you want to talk about and how we can help you. I think we're also looking if anyone wants to talk and isn't sure about actually doing the talk. I think we were speaking the other day saying we'll actually give you a hand in doing that. So yeah, don't be afraid to come speak to us, even if you, well, I might want to talk about something. So yeah, next up we have Chris doing the talk called "What the Heck is the Shadow DOM?"
Oh, sorry. You can't get the staff these days. Right then, so what the heck is the Shadow DOM? So, as you quite rightly put out, I'm Chris.
You're up there,
I am a lot thinner there. That's actually, yeah, that's the most recent photo I have. It's about 4 years old, so they don't let me out of the office that much. Yeah. So yeah.
You don't deserve it.
No, I don't. I really don't. So yeah, I've developed a Frog, quite good that, and JavaScript advocate. Just don't get along with PHP. It's me. And you can follow me from there. So how did I get started with web components? Basically, there's been a few mutterings around the office about Shadow DOM. Obviously, a few early adopters who were really keen, but I didn't really listen because, well, it wasn't cool. We can't use it. And then, as obviously the year approached and we started to get Google implementing it, tweeting about it, started looking into it, and then put it back to bed because, hey, futures. Now, a bit of context. At Frog, we have a small lull on front-end developers, especially those who are advocates. I'm avoiding. I'm fine, cool. We had a particular developer who was very JavaScript phobic. Didn't like JavaScript. The one Frog devs are probably giggling right now. And we have a front-end framework. We're very heavy JS users. So how can I get this person to use quite complex modules and components without actually thinking that he's using quite complex modules and components? And that's where I sort of sold on the idea of using web components. So today I'm going to talk to you about how I got into using them, the journey I went on, the things I found, and also hope to give you a bit of information about them because there's still not a lot of information out there in widespread about how to use them and what's in there. So yeah, I'm going to talk to you today about the web component spec. And the reason I put this in because I'm not. So web components, there's a misconception that it's part of the HTML5 spec. I'll just put it out of the way. It was. And then they canned it. So a bit of history there. So yeah, what are web components actually? Well, we've got 4 parts to web components. I've shuffled my slides but not changed my notes. Sorry about that. So what are web components? There's 4 parts, and I will go through each in the cycle. I've had too much energy drink today. So first we've got custom elements. HTML imports, templates, and Shadow DOM. So that's the exciting part. Funnily enough, they're not all from the same part. In fact, 2 of them are already out there. They've been out there for I think 3 years, and no one's used them. So we've got 2 from HTML5, and the rest are from ES6, which is going to be good for us hopefully next month.
Went the wrong way.
That's not. That's good. So custom elements allows us to define and use. This is your fault. Allows us to define and use new components. This is going so well. So custom elements are semantic. So if you understand what semantic web is, this is really important. especially for larger applications, being able to just semantically declare that something is a attribute, you know exactly what it is. We've all looked into things like Google Mail, open source, looked at the element inspector and gone, wow, what the hell is that div soup? What does what? I'm lost. Being able to have an element that says declaratively, I'm a header. We all know where that is, what it does on the page, why it's important. Again, semantic elements are really easy to reuse. And I'll actually show you something that's out in the wild now that we use on a daily basis and don't even realise. The nice thing about the way the rules around custom elements are structured is that they're not going to break future releases of the spec. So you can develop hundreds, thousands of custom elements, put them out in the wild, and you can guarantee to within a certainty that you're not going to break any future HTML specs because the rules governing how you define these and use them. So what do they give us? Well, firstly, they give us an easy method to define new, also to extend existing HTML elements. So, for example, here I've created a UI user element, which will allow me to define how I display maybe a user's profile tag. And I've based that off standard HTML elements. I've used the unresolved element because that's actually the most standard across the browsers. They also give us access to something we've never ever had before, which is the element lifecycle. So, at all stages of my element's life, when it's created, before it's even attached to the DOM, if it's created with virtual memory, I get a callback. When it's attached to the DOM, I get a callback, and when it's removed from the DOM and deleted from memory, I get a callback, so I can handle teardowns, setups, anything special I want to do. Also, I get a generic attribute change callback, which does what it says on the tin. You update an attribute on that HTML, you'll get a callback, and you can do lots of fun stuff with that. I get the feeling I've just skipped something there. Yeah. So one of the questions I got asked today, and I hurriedly put this together, is what problems do custom elements solve? Because it just seems like a lot of work writing all these sort of mini libraries almost. Why should we bother? So previously, in HTML5, I had a whole sort of 24 thing going there. Didn't come across. We had no common structure or pattern to our elements and how they were defined. From every version of HTML, the way we define the tags and the way we use the element, the attributes on those elements change. And certainly coming in for the bottom end, that was easy because you could track that progression as you developed as a developer. Coming in at the top end, coming into the industry with HTML5 and then having to work down to HTML2 and things like that. Certainly I know it was hard for Ollie, who was born not so long ago. Hi Ollie. So it could be quite confusing, and even now, if you've worked consistently for a few weeks with HTML4 up, and then you have to go and use a really old part of the spec, maybe code groups or something like that, it can be quite confusing and throw you for a few minutes before you pick up MDN and go, what the hell am I doing? Also, DOM APIs. They've improved massively this year and last year. But previously, DOM APIs were absolutely shocking. And it's no wonder native caught up with us. What's it? Blue. Can't get the stack these days.
The phone.
Wrong.
The phone doesn't.
Also, we were overloading HTML specifications by constantly requesting new elements. Vendors were having to build these new IDLs to match what we wanted. It just bloated things and made release cycles longer, made the arguments at ECMA longer because they were trying to squeeze in what all the developers wanted. But now our HTML can be more declarative and readable. Again, harking back to what we said about semantics. Also means we can cut down on the diff soup, so as developers going in trying to figure out what's going wrong, why our our link tag has flown over the other side of the page. We can see that more clearly now without having to trace through classes, ID tags, things like that. Again, that just really goes back onto that more meaningful semantically correct, which, aside from benefits just discussed there, if you've got things like web crawlers, spider bots going across the web, or even Google itself, looking through your site, trying to figure out what your site is, a computer can figure that out now. Rather than having to rely on metadata that you usually have to spend hours setting up in your head tags and then going through SEO software trying to figure out what's my best use of the keywords. It's also, again, easily extendable and reusable. Oops, typo. So again, you can build a basic element, extend upon it, and extend upon it without having to write your boilerplate code every single time. But ultimately, custom elements are just a gimmick. They become so much more powerful when you combine them with Shadow DOM, which is where we're going to go now. So what is the Shadow DOM? I'm going to nick a bit from the web components slide. It's a method for establishing and maintaining functional boundaries between DOM trees. That's quite a mouthful. I prefer to think of it like a two-way mirror. You've got code inside of there that you can see, the browser can see it, but it can't touch it, it cannot impact on it. The code on the other side, your web component, it can throw stuff out the mirror, it knows there's a mirror there. And if it yells at it, yeah, it can get through, so events. But it can't impact on anything out there. It can't physically change its outer world. And that's what that essentially means. So, when I started writing the slide, I realised there is a heck of a lot of jargon. So, I hope you forgive me, I'm just going to throw a load of jargon on the screen, so that when I start getting deeper into this slides, I'm not leaving anyone behind. So, we all know what a document tree is, I hope. It's your basic, it's just another term, official term for the DOM. The shadow tree is the element that hosts 0 or 1 associated nodes. Shadow root is the root node of that tree. And the light DOM, which a lot of people don't actually know what that is actually just your main DOM. It's the DOM that's in focus. There's one more? Right. And the shadow host, or as referred to in a lot of the documentation without the AKA, the host element, is the element that hosts one or more shadow trees, which we'll get to later. So what are the benefits of using Shadow DOM? Well, one of the biggest performance helps for us is that CSS triggers fired from within the Shadow DOM won't affect the light DOM unless you change the outer geometry. So if you're underlining a bit of text, providing it doesn't change the shape of your component at the shadow root, it won't cause a CSS trigger to bubble and copy it all the way up to the body tag, which, depending on how deep down you are in the DOM, will hopefully save you a lot of processing. So the JavaScript can cross the shadow boundary, which is quite nice. Being able to share the same document context with your parent document as with all your components is really useful. I don't need to tell you it's really useful. It is really useful. And you're not then encapsulated having to try and fetch things across sockets or anything like that. That's not events can cross the shadow boundary. This is a myth that I'm going to try and scrub as much as possible. There's been a lot of talk about Shadow DOM stopping events, blocking events, bubbling, and just generally being the saviour that we're all waiting for. It doesn't stop events. I'll just say that right now. But it does just recast them as the host element, and that's bidirectional. So if you're firing in, the component won't be aware of what's outside. It won't know that that button at the top of the page fired the event in. It'll just know that the event's been fired in from its root. Similarly, going out, you fire from it inside, going out, It'll be cat course at the boundary, recast and sent on its way. Like I said, this hasn't been ratified yet, and there is some talk from within ECMA itself about providing functionality for developers to selectively block events, which I think will answer a lot of people's prayers. So, using Shadow, you already do. I've got a couple of examples. I've thrown this in for a nice picture, but basically, if you've ever used the video tag, any of the input tags from HTML5, you're using the Shadow DOM right now. It's been around for a few years. So this I took out of Chrome, and you can see actually I've got about 3 or 4 instances of the Shadow DOM in there. Some of them even nested inside themselves. One thing that really does push on the whole idea of web components is this bit here. That's the scrub that you get at the bottom of the video track. That's actually an input range control. So they've actually managed to reuse font controls inside of some media components, which I think is fantastic reuse. So, how do you use Shadow DOM? This will give you an instance of the Shadow DOM inside of our previous example of the UI user tag. As you can see, only a few lines, it's really, really simple. I don't know where I was going with that. Yeah. Just see, it's really, really simple to use the Shadow DOM, and I'll answer any questions and hopefully do a live demo of this time at the end. By the way, guys, feel free just to hand up if there's anything as I'm going through. So, as with anything, there's always going to be gotchas. Firstly, you can't use a link tag inside the Shadow DOM. So if you've got style sheets you want to bring in, you can't do it. This is a misconception that's been propagated by Google itself, actually, in their Polymer project, where they actually allow you to bring style sheets in using link tags inside of the Shadow DOM. For security reasons, this was locked down, and you can only now do it by putting inline styling, which is a bit of an anti-passive, really.
What's this template tag?
Template tag. I'll cover that in a bit, in next segue actually. So, also, because we can't bring down, because we have this idea of encapsulation on the side boundaries, especially for CSS, which we do start leaking, we can't cascade our library classes into it. So Bootstrap, Fontools, all the things we've come to love and rely on, all of a sudden don't work. The way I've found to get around this is to re-import them using a new sudo search /d/. And then obviously I've got to then recompile all the less files. It's that in itself, even though that is the fix, that's a big gotcha for me. I now can't rely on unified code from my vendors. I've got to recompile that myself. So let's push back right point out, what's this template stuff? And the answer to that is, it's simply just hidden HTML. Has anyone ever used a template engine in their applications? So, yeah. Well, we've all been, there's so many out there. So, vendors finally caught on and they thought, what can we do to make it better? They gave us a native implementation. So as it quite like it says, again from web components, it's a method for declaring inert DOM subtrees in HTML, but to manipulate, but not render straight away. So why use them? Well, firstly, it's a native implementation. It's going to be faster than your third party. It's also going to ship with the browser, so you don't need to worry about downloading this sort of stuff. So automatically, your bootstrap process for your application coming down is reduced. It's easy to reuse without the need for third-party dependencies. And I think that's the main key thing. you don't have to worry about having your mustache JS file coming down all the time. You don't have to worry about your EJS file coming down.
Chris, just about that one, like one of the main uses for templates, like using Mustache or Untitled, tends to be that you can print stuff out in them before they get rendered. Do templates support that sort of thing?
They do. And I'll show you an example in a minute of you can actually manipulate these and get the same effect as just a standard output in less than 10 lines of JavaScript. Which, when you consider the size of some of the engines like EJS, Mustache, when you strip away the chrome of, like, say, being able to print stuff out into them using curly braces, that's pretty good. So, how do I use templates? Well, it's like any other element, it's really just a div that has visibility hidden set on it. Obviously there's a bit of chrome behind it, but essentially that's all it is. So this time I went and borrowed a bit from Mozilla. Think of it as a content fragment. I'll just leave that. Essentially, it's there when the parser parses a page to ensure that it's correct. It protects you, but it won't render. And that's an example of a template. So what we've got at the top, template with an ID, so I can identify it and get it with JavaScript. I've used sudo such to declare there what each div contains, and there's something weird there called content tag, which I'll get to in a second. In fact, I'll get to it now. So the content element is actually part of the shadow DOM spec, but it fits in here nicely. Going back to what Sam was pointing out about being able to print into it, it acts as an insertion point. Now, some of the libraries that wrap into the template stuff will allow for mustache type behaviours, auto binding, things like that. But we can just as well easily do that with JavaScript. So in this example, I've got a content select P, and I'm basically saying anything that appears inside of my instantiation with text will appear in there. You can do this with any content. In fact, the video element does it with the source tag. So when you include source in there, it pulls that in and sticks in its internals. So HTML import, which is the next spec, load all the things. So this is a browser native functionality for Dependency Manager. It doesn't cover everything most of our dependency managers cover, but it will get you started. And until today, I actually thought it was quite complex. Reading the spec, it scared the living hell out of me, if I'm honest. It's the one part of this I've had zero experience with, but I played with it today, and it's actually not that bad. It's one of those things with a really scary box with a big manual. So what are HTML imports? Like I said, it's require.js, but native. Again, if you've got a very simple app, but you need a dependency manager that's just going to pull files down, it's there native. You can get rid of your bootstrap step. Obviously, if I'm in the browser, native. It is already compatible with some build systems, so Gulp and Vulcanize, which, again, it sort of answers some of the problems and some of the answers that dependencies managers give us out of the box. But you're then reliant on Gulp or Vulcanize, so if you're using a different build step, sorry, this isn't going to work just yet. So why use them? I think I've answered this anyway. So you can bundle JS, HTML and CSS into a single URL. So when we're thinking about components again, we can declare a single HTML file as our point for that component to bring it in. And that can contain everything from our JS, HTML and CSS. Again, not unlike a dependency manager. It's not going well, this, is it? One really nice thing about this, because it operates inside the browser natively, is that any inside script tags that you have inside of your incumbent HTML file won't block the rendering on the main page. They actually run in their own thread, so you're not going to block your rendering as you're loading in these libraries. And either which way, they do support the async attribute, which means if that request has had to go off a long way around to have dynamic routing, it's not going to block the loading of your site with that element. A nice thing with HTML imports is that because they're in the browser, they operate on a caching system, similar to the existing HTML gets and HTTP requests.
So you can like cache a bit of the page basically.
You cache that entire thing.
Yeah.
So with each subsequent visit, your initial load will be shortened.
Yeah.
So how do I use them? Simple. It's like loading a style sheet. Link rel import, and then the path. As with the title, because it's HTML imports, it expects an HTML file. That's the only downside really to that. This is the contents of that file. I'll be giving these to Chris or Luke to publish as working examples. So inside, I'm bringing in my CSS. I've got some inline styles as well. I've then got my template object from the previous example. And then one of the things you can do with HTML imports is make things really simple, because they can either execute script or register things on your host document. So, because I trust this, I wrote it, I'm going to let it register against my document scope. Which means I only have to do that declaration on my owner document and nothing else. I don't need to write any dynamic scripts to say, put this in my head, put this in my body. Finished. So gotchas. Again, there are gotchas, but at least we know about them ahead of time. First off is current document scope. So you pass the scope in, but you've got to do a bit of a search to get the owner document scope so you can then assign stuff to it. Secondly, and this really does go against what they've been harping on about standardising APIs. When you're in an imported document, the API changes for converting templates. So instead of cloning, you have to import the node. It's a minor annoyance, but as you're developing this, especially later on at night, if you're on a deadline maybe, you're rushing to get it done, those sort of mistakes are the ones that make you spend hours sitting there with Chrome DevTools and MDM's open next to you. Go, I know that's the bloody function. I know that's what I'm supposed to call. It's little things like that that actually make these things unusable, which is really sad.
Is that inside the same import, or is that something you do when you're trying to import?
Yeah, so if you're trying to self-register an import onto the owner scope, then you'll have to do that, unfortunately. The HTML imports don't literally mean just, here's a page and now put everything inside of my page. It means there's stuff on this page, go away, get it, and then we'll negotiate about how we're going to use it. So it might be, yeah, we're going to bring down this style sheet, put it in the head. It might be, there's a load of script on this, we're going to run it and it's going to output something awesome. It's one of those things, and I think the next slide says it all really. Read the damn manual.
Don't say that.
Boss is here, boss is here, I'm not saying that. Oh yeah, read the damn manual. HTML imports are by far the most complicated part of this entire collection. And as I said earlier, they are really simple, but they can be really complex at the same time, and they are as complex as you make them. So I advise, if you're going to go into this, read the manual, experiment a bit, and work your way up to the really complex stuff. I mean, some of the questions you're going to get are, do you load dynamically? Do you load asynchronous? Do you let it self-register? And does it define or execute, or both? So does it define functions and variables for you to use in your own scope? Does it just execute and run a script? Or does it do a bit of both? These things can really trip you up if you've gone down one route and then suddenly change your mind. So you have to bear this in mind when you go into it.
Are there any libraries that make this easier for you?
Polymer, if you dare.
Okay.
We've had a play with Polymer today, and it's been interesting. It was like going back to 101 on HTML, and I had to forget everything I ever knew about the web, but it was informative. So, back to what we know about web components. I know I've talked for about 30 minutes now, rambling on about the spec and what's coming, how to use it, but why should we use it? Why do we care, and why are we listening to me droning on? Is the more important answer. And that's there because this is awesome tech. It really is, and it can change your development cycles. It can reduce It can reduce your dev time dramatically if you've got a library of these things pre-built, ready to go. And they really do take literally hours to throw together if you write them the way you should.
All of these at the minute require browser reduction, right? So
There are polyfills, and I've got a thing at the end about support. So, if there's one thing I can do today, apart from show you all of this, is give you a strategy about how to componentize your sites, your applications, new projects. And a lot of this has been taken from research, experience, and then also various blog posts by the Google team who have really been at the forefront of all of this. Biggest piece of advice I've got, and they've got as well, is start small, start simple, and start isolated. So just think about your smallest possible item in the thing you want to build. Is it going to occur more than once? Can I componentize that? And can I make that extendable? And that may just save you a bit of time. You've got a big thing you want to build. Reuse as many small components as possible to create larger collections or modules. Again, it will save you loads of time. You're reusing stuff you've already written, and in some cases already tested. Don't be put off in extending native elements or even custom elements you've got. They're there for a reason. They've been tested, they're hardwired, you know them, extend them. It's getting to save you. And ultimately, don't componentize too large. There are some examples out there of people who've done an entire component which is an app. That's a lot of magic in one box. I mean, by all means, do it. Go wild. Go nuts. This is good. This is JavaScript at the end of the day. It wants you to make mistakes. It wants you to learn. That's what makes JavaScript such a great language. It lets you make mistakes. But don't componentize too large, because you're putting all your eggs in one basket. Or rather, just put all your eggs in one big egg. So, yeah, that's just an example, really. My app to the toolbar that possibly contains a collection of components that we've got. And, well, a wrapper, arguably unnecessary, but depends on your scenario. So, I suppose one of the big things with number 4 is start to think and consider whether you actually need to do this, or if just a bit of CSS will do the trick. So that's quite like that. This does depend largely on browser and vendor adoption, and it's getting there, to be honest. So at the moment, available unprefixed, unflagged, Chrome 42. I can see a few people going, Chrome, no, IE all the way. I've had one of them today, actually.
That was a director.
It was a director, he doesn't know anything. It's partially available in Firefox. Obviously, with Chrome comes Opera, but Firefox, they've written everything, they have. They just don't want to commit to giving it to you, which is a bit selfish, really. The reason for this is this has not been set in stone yet. ECMA General Assembly is June 11th to June 15th, which should say, yeah, you'll be like this, folks, get developing. At which point, the next release, Firefox, should take all that yellow and turn it green. Fingers crossed. Safari, well, Apple have promised to develop it. They've said, you know what guys, I know we stripped this out and caused a whole problem with WebKit, but we promised we're going to do this. We really are. And I think that sounds a bit too much like a political party promise, to be honest. They've promised to do it. They've said it's going to be in the next major release of iOS Safari, and possibly the next release of Safari. I'll believe it when I see it. They've got a long way to go. But as we all know, they did have Shadow DOM working, and they stripped it out because it was frying a few iPads. Kind of easy. And Internet Explorer is planning to do it, you know. And in the same way that I plan to do the hoovering on my day off. It will happen! Even in Edge, they're not sure if they're committed to it yet. And this may just be because ECMA haven't signed it off yet. Again, we'll know more in literally 3 weeks' time. But at the moment, Internet Explorer, it's all in the planning stages. Which doesn't really help us. But fortunately, Google has come to the rescue. It's not often I get to say that. So the Polymer team have published a set of polyfills which have really, really good support. They're really lightweight. I think they come in unminified at about 11 kilobytes. So for a set of polyfills that are essentially a big library, that's pretty good. They support IE7 Plus, Safari, iOS 6 Plus, and the majority of modern browsers that aren't supporting this yet. So even if you've got some weird cut-off of Firefox or Opera, it'll be in there and it'll work. As to it's their main product now. So, I'm nearly done. A couple of resources for this. We've got Eric Bardelman's talk from Google I/O 2014. Really interesting, and a lot in there about why under the hood they've done what they've wanted of this, and why things like the Shadow DOM custom elements are better than Virtual DOM because of all the in-the-hood improvements in Chrome and Blink and a lot of the other vendors. A lot of my inspiration was taken from a talk at Dev Week 2015, and that's the slideshow you can get there. It's a bit lengthy and a bit verbose, so beware if you do venture that way. The Polymer team have actually thrown together some examples of apps that are quite useful, and I'll do a quick demo of them in a minute if we've got time. Yeah. So they've rebuilt Google Mail using Polymer, and they've also created an example app which is fully functional. So. This was built using out-of-the-box components using the Polymer library. As you can see, it's got quite a lot of nice UI pieces which you can click on. If I open up the element inspector and bring this across, see they have a lot of custom elements in there, but largely it all makes sense. He says.
Paper toast.
Yeah, big toast. Yeah.
How do you have you run anyone else through kind of the stuff that you've been doing working towards with it? How have you found, for example, that sort of like paper toast and I can't read the rest, I haven't got the glasses on. But coming into that as a dev, I know what the DOM tends to look like, and I know all these bits.
Yeah.
Now there's new stuff that I have no clue what it is like paper toast. How have you found it? Have you done it, and how have you found it bringing it in?
It's more depends on the aptitude of the person you're talking to. If they're the sort of person who can't listen to somebody, they just have to sit with the code, sit with a book, sit with the documentation, and blast through it, then it's pointing them at the right resources, at the Google Dev channel on YouTube, and just really doing a piece around what Semantic Web is and how this all works. If it's somebody who learns more kinesthetically, it's about taking them through maybe how the element's created or what it means. So in this case, these are out of the box part Polymer suite. So we can go to the Polymer documentation, look at their tests, their demos, things like that. But ultimately, it's all about drilling down through the inspector and seeing how this makes more sense than Google Mail now. So if you put Google Mail up on a separate screen than this and just compare the two and see what makes more sense in their mind.
I have an extended question to that.
Sure.
Like, if you are poking here at paper toast or whatever, can you tell where that's come from? I can tell, like, I assume that's come in from a HTML import.
So, as usual, you can click on the elements, and you'll see a lot of style tags. But they should take you to the file where they're written.
So you're quickly able to figure out what
It
import
works
creates.
exactly as it used to work back in the old days.
I imagine as well, because it's dev tools, they'll probably improve that as well.
Yeah.
And make it easier to actually find what came from where.
Absolutely. There's a huge push at the moment. Obviously, as these become supported features in various browsers, they're going to do a huge push on showing how it works and providing tooling for that. In fact, there was a demo up on Adi Osmani's blog about exactly that. Firefox Developer currently has a viewer for custom elements as well.
What are the benefits for actual end users?
Benefits for actual end users? Potentially they get the product faster. Depends on your end user though. If your end user is a dev who wants to poke around your code, it's potentially really useful for that dev to learn how you write your code and for you to disseminate best practice through your product. For the average Joe end user, not a lot other than, again, speed of business, more reliable because you've got reusable, testable components.
When is it, you mentioned earlier about like kind of the memory and stuff like that, and you said about melting iPads.
Yes.
Where does it go? So obviously you've got a not unlimited amount of memory for your DOM.
Sure.
On all your bits pieces, so when you repaint and all that type of stuff. When it's in a shadow DOM element, where is it? Does it count to that front end and melt that iPad?
Yeah.
Or
That depends very much on the implementation per vendor as usual. The instance that was ripped out of WebKit famously was a very early implementation. And it's purely in testing that it was melting iPads. One of my favourite terms actually. Either way, for the last sort of few months, a lot of the vendors have been doing a very hard push on performance. Since Chrome 35, Firefox 32 and IE 10, there's been a huge amount of resource spent on performance, certainly in the DOM, and how it handles memory, and it tees up its optimizers. To the point now where live DOM in those browsers is actually more performant, faster, and better on the memory cache than virtual DOM. Again, this all boils down to how you use it best practice. The big memory saving device though with Shadow DOM is the fact that it will stop the majority of CSS triggers, which can flow all the way up your DOM.
What's a CSS trigger?
So, I think the most basic one, and actually one of the worst, is the hover effect you get on link tags. See, when you hover over a hyperlink, you get that underline appear. Now that does a number of things. It changes the size of that element. It adds 1 pixel height. But because it's added 1 pixel height to that listed element, it's changed the position of all the elements around it. It's also added colour to those pixels, so we're going to have to repaint that element. So we've now got to change the geometry. We've got to relay out all the elements around it, hoping that they've not disturbed elements around them. And we've got to repaint, possibly repaint a few other things. You're going to get damaged pixels, so you've now got a garbage collection operation you need to perform. Now, depending on that change, it could have changed the entire site, or it could have just changed 5 elements that surround it. In the worst case scenario, using Shadow DOM wrapped around that element, providing it doesn't change its outer geometry, will stop those events trickling and thus save process speed and memory.
I mean, you put a lot into this presentation and thought about the Shadow DOM and what's coming with some of these new specs quite a lot. You've also kind of been quite honest about some of the gotchas.
Yeah.
So, I think Bootstrap using an example that doesn't penetrate into Shadow DOM, so you have to green book. Given those gotchas, given that it's not a finalized
Yes. This has been ripped out of HTML5. It was hinted at in ECMA 5, and it was ripped out. It's now on most of the dev user voice channels one of the most requested features that devs are bugging vendors for. The vendors are now actively pushing for this to get confirmed. The spec is really, really solid. And it's really just a formal process now that we're waiting for. It's just that bit of red tape. The fact it's already out there, it's being used widely by some devs. There's frameworks based on it now. It's more or less a certainty. I wouldn't have used it 6 months ago, but the progression that's come since the last IO, the last few months with all the ramp up of Polymer, the adoption of Angular to the extent where people have sort of almost doing this exact thing, but within the Angular framework. Yeah. So this idea, even if you don't use the native web component specifications, the idea around componentization, whether it be with CanJS, Blade Runner.js, Backbone, Ember, it's something definitely to use.
One of the things that's coming in Ember is that they're looking for ways to reuse Polymer components as Ember components, so to plug directly into the framework as if you wrote Ember native components, which are considered but that way, hopefully, at some point in the future, you'll be able to use Polymer and directly.
There actually is already a Polymer and Angular 2 on GitHub. There's also, anyone who follows Microsoft, there's also WinJS and Polymer collaboration as well. So already before this has all been signed off, and even before Polymer's even hit a general release, it's still in dev preview. We're getting collaborations, mashups. I think it just shows to show the level of confidence and the need for this out in the industry. My last example is something that was put together again by the Google team, and this uses purely native, out-of-the-box Polymer elements. And I'll just choose it. You get all these animations, they're using native JavaScript, all through Polymer. Well, I don't know, but the important part to know is not using jQuery. So I'm going to show off how bad I am now at sports. So this is a sports quiz. Anyone know this one?
Ice hockey.
Ice hockey.
Fighting bears.
You'd all be wrong.
See, it was fighting bears.
It could have been fighting bears. Saunders. Oh, go on, let's do it. I'm curious. Actually, it was. Hey! Biathlon, anyone a biathlete? I think that's the right word. Well, I'll cheat. I used true early when I was testing it, and it was wrong. There we go. 8 points. How many people in a... again, nice UI piece here.
Like with the horses.
Sort of, except swimming.
Drowning horses.
Drowning horses, yeah. I'm just going to play through these now. Probably get most of them wrong, as I did this morning. Yep, wrong. No. There we go. Blank. Oh, Bob, is it? Bob. Bib. That'll do. That's a point. There we go. And there's the scorecard. So all this functionality was written using Polymer. As we all know, as devs, especially doing presentations and creating example code, if I'm honest, I don't spend a lot of time doing it. It distracts from what I'm actually supposed to be doing. So you can imagine how little time they probably spent doing this. And I think they did a pretty good job from what's come out of it. So feel free to have a play with them if you so like. Questions? Yeah. Anyone got any questions? Awesome.
All the slides and that's
Yeah.
well,
I deliberately went away from PowerPoint so I could guarantee everyone would be able to use these.
We'll put them up. I think it's done from slides, which is
Yep.
so we'll tweet out from the Leeds Twitter and the other social media pages.
Okay.
I assume you're on the Slack.
I'm not.
No. We'll get you on the Slack and then people can ask you questions.
Awesome. Right, well, thanks for listening, everyone.
We've got one last announcement, which leads on from this. We're launching a monthly challenge. So you spend the month as much or as little time as you want, working towards a goal to win a prize. I don't know if it's going to be the top few places or the top place. But this month's challenge is do something cool with web components. So at the beginning of next month's meetup, you'll spend a couple of minutes just demoing it up on the screen, showing off what you've done. If you want to release the source, you can release the source. We'll tweet it out. And yeah, I'm sure Chris will be happy to answer any questions through his Twitter or if he comes on the Slack. So yeah. 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 So that's that.
Tip your waitress.
I think that's everything from us. I don't think we have anything else to. Yeah. If you quit, you can probably get to the bar.